Good morning, everyone. Mike's MMA Picks here with your UFC 288 Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown show. Newark, New Jersey. Belts on the line. Great fights. 12 of them, to be exact. 8 out of 12 of these matchups are currently lined to end inside the distance. I'll be in attendance this evening, looking to catch up with everybody as we soak up the atmosphere inside of the Rock, the Prudential Center, and let's get things kicked off. First fight of the night, where we have Joseph Holmes taking on Claudio Hibero. Claudio Hibero coming in as a minus 170 betting favorite, and he is the older fighter here, fighter coming off of a brutal knockout loss. And Hibero throws hammers, doesn't really seem to care much about what's headed back at him. Joseph Holmes, you watch his fights, wiry frame, decent submission game, struggles from a defensive perspective, especially when he's on the mat. We've seen him give up in certain positions. The Iron Turtle was able to totally take advantage of Holmes and his cardio deficiencies. Now, this is somebody who missed weight 189 pounds. I have some serious concerns about Joseph Holmes from a cardio standpoint. I don't see this fight going the distance. You look at the fight doesn't go the distance prop, was hovering around minus 400 or so. Now, when does this finish and who gets the finish? That is the question. I'm concerned about Joseph Holmes's weight cut here. This kid, 27 years of age, still progressing. Hibero, by the way, watch his corner make his way to the octagon. Let's see if that pays off for him in this bout. I'm going to be picking Claudio Hibero to get this fight done via knockout. Joseph Holmes, though, he's going to be live early. He's going to be live for a submission. And I'm going to be staying away from this fight from a betting perspective, unless the line gets more playable and inside the distance line. We're going to be talking unders here. Next up, we've got Phil Hawes making the comeback after his knee was decimated. Looked like it was torn apart against Roman Dolidze. He was also knocked out of that fight as well, if I remember correctly. Now, Phil Hawes, no spring chicken, in his mid-30s, phenomenal wrestler, comes from a legitimate pedigree where he's an explosive fighter. He's going to fight hard for your money while he's conscious, but how long can he stay conscious? That is the question here against Ikram Aliaskhabov. Aliaskhabov is coming in as the minus 190 betting favorite. But I watched back the tape on Aliaskhabov, and you want to see a brutal knockout. Watch Aliaskhabov's fight against Khamzat Chimaev. Khamzat Chimaev is not necessarily known as a striker and landed a brutal uppercut that totally obliterated Aliaskhabov. Now, this is a fighter, Aliaskhabov, who came in as the minus 580 betting favorite against Souza in his Dana White Contender Series bout. He's a competent wrestler who has, as we saw in the Contender Series, there's a possibility to lock up a submission. The thing about Phil Hawes, we've seen him rocked by shots that don't look like they would put other fighters out at that weight class. I know he's typically putting in a decent sized weight cut, and this fight is in New Jersey. A lot of folks see the OV at the end of his name, Aliaskhabov. I have to roll with the Aliaskhabov here. I think that the combat sambo background, the less mileage and wear and tear on his body, and also, let's be honest here, when we're comparing chins, Phil Hawes may have one of the worst chins in the sport, unfortunately. I know the other thing is he's from New Jersey. Phil Hawes is going to have a contingency of fans there. It's a hometown fight for him. I know he fights out of, I think, Killcliff in Florida right now, but from New Jersey. Going to be picking Ikram Aliaskhabov in that matchup. Not much conviction in that pick, though. I think there's a lot of volatility in that fight, and my gut and the tape is telling me that Phil Hawes will likely be rendered unconscious. Next up, heavyweights. This is the third consecutive fight that's favored to end inside the distance here. And you look at fight doesn't go the distance. We've got a massive number. We got a massive number here. Parker Porter coming in as the minus 175 betting favorite. This is someone who is well-rounded. I know he's coming off of the knockout loss to Justin Tafa, and Braxton Smith, raw, athletic specimen. Look at his, in all of his interviews, the guy takes up the full screen, his shoulders. He's a force to be reckoned with. He has spoken about in recent interviews that he can go into deep waters if need be, but he just hasn't had to. I don't trust him when he says that. I think that Parker Porter is going to try to extend Braxton Smith for as long as he can and drag him into what some may consider deep waters. I'm talking past the 3-minute mark. And Parker Porter has a significant grappling edge here, but is he going to be able to get this fight to the mat? Are we talking takedowns? Closing the distance looks like a precarious voyage for Braxton, for Parker Porter here. A precarious voyage for Parker Porter as he tries to navigate the terrain of the octagon closing distance against Braxton Smith, who will likely look to land a seminal blow here. But can we trust Braxton Smith here? I know the guy's only 5-1. He doesn't seem to pose any type of threat on the mat. Lunging into strikes, leaving his head and his chin on a platter for Parker Porter to land. But we have to be honest with ourselves here. This is extremely low-level heavyweight action with volatility that must be considered when making any type of betting play. I'll be picking Parker Porter here, but the reality is that anybody could go out at any moment in this specific bout. So if you're playing the unders, the under 1.5 when it was at a playable line, cheers to you. I don't typically like to play under 1.5s. I typically, in situations where you have odds that are playable, under 2.5 is more of my my liking, or fight doesn't go the distance. But this number is so blown out. It's a bit ridiculous. I'll be picking Parker Porter, but I don't see this fight starting the third round. Next up, where we have Marina Rodriguez taking on Virna Jandiroba. Marina Rodriguez is a fighter who's seen better days, who's starting to get up there in age. I believe she's 36 years of age now. So this is a fighter who has a lot of mileage on her odometer. And she's a Muay Thai striker who is going to look to land hands and knees and elbows against Virna Jandiroba, who is the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu ace in this spot. Jandiroba also has a wrestling game to speak of. That's been Marina Rodriguez's kryptonite. Marina Rodriguez is a fighter who does have decent cardio, but when she gets put on her back, she can get stuck there for a while. You've watched the tape. Rodriguez, if this fight's on the feet, we know how it should go. Jandiroba doesn't have the quickness and the striking to keep up with Marina Rodriguez. But if this fight ends up in the clinch, you saw the massive biceps on Jandiroba. She is strong like an ox, and she knows what her strengths are. She'll fight to her strengths. So I'm going to be picking the underdog here, Virna Jandiroba, and I think that she has a viable path to victory, which may play out. And you're talking about the larger octagon, which I know a lot of folks prefer backing wrestlers in the smaller octagon, or jiu-jitsu practitioners in the smaller octagon, but you also must consider takedowns at space. A lot of folks are traditionally used to attempting their get-ups against the fence and using the fence as a crutch to work their way back to the feet, and they have no semblance of a get-up game if they're stuck in the middle of the octagon. We've seen that from other fighters. I'll talk about another one later on up the card, but I don't trust Marina Rodriguez's get-up game, and she's also 36 years of age. I'll be picking Virna Jandiroba. I know she's no spring chicken as well, but she has a viable path to victory, and I think that she's going to get it done here. Let's go, Evan. Good morning. Great to see you here. Yeah, here we go. Maynard, getting your coffee locked in. I love it. I love it. We are ready to rock and roll here. Let's continue this journey. So we've got Chaos Williams taking on Rolando Bedoya. Bedoya, I've watched the tape. I've watched a number of his fights on the regional scene. Shooter box fighter who is not Brazilian, but fights like a lot of shooter box fighters in that he is very aggressive. He will attempt strikes with multiple limbs. He's not hesitant to go to the ground. He is a very aggressive fighter. Even when he's had his stuff rocked. I mean, I saw him get blasted by an overhand right from an opponent who was a marginal fighter, and it sent him to the canvas. The opponent tried to lock in a submission, was unable to do so because of Bedoya's willingness to not give up on himself. He seemed unfazed in this stare down against Chaos Williams, who poses a serious power threat here. Chaos Williams, he leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to breaking down fight footage. Looks very sloppy at times out there, but one thing that's undeniable is Chaos Williams's fight-ending power. And in this spot, the guy's taken a year off, looked great on the scales. Cardio has never really been an issue for Williams, has been able to take some big shots in there as well. And I know he's coming off of the win over or the loss to Randy Brown. So I think he's going to want to get in there. And he's got a foe who's going to be storming towards him inside of the octagon in Rolando Bedoya. The guy doesn't necessarily take steps backwards. We see a lot of feints, but then he usually tries to lead the dance, and he's walking right into a fire with Chaos Williams. So I think Chaos Williams gets this fight done inside the distance. I wouldn't be comfortable playing his money line, but if you're looking at the inside the distance line on Chaos Williams, is hovering around minus 150 or so at some books. I think it's minus 200 at some as well. But I think that Chaos Williams gets this done inside the distance and renders Bedoya unconscious. Now, Bedoya, we haven't seen him put out before. So maybe this kid has a chin that is granite and it takes a lot to put him away. But one thing I noticed about Williams, if you make a mistake against him, he's going to make you pay. And sometimes it doesn't take too many mistakes. So give me Chaos Williams to win. And I think he gets it done by knockout. Now, Kennedy Zehchukwu taking on Devin Clark. This is a situation where you have a fighter in both of these fighters. I will be listening in on their corners as their boisterous corners. Devin Clark, you've got his father who has a set of lungs on him. And then you'll also have the Team Fortis corner who will be shouting commands at Kennedy Zehchukwu looking to cheer him on and use correct techniques to win this fight. Now, Zehchukwu has had a number of bonehead mistakes. He's committed a number of unforced errors inside of the octagon. This is a guy who's gifted from a athletic standpoint, from a height and reach standpoint. He's starting to use his reach to his advantage, which I like to see. Also, on the inside, can land some elbows. Wouldn't surprise me to see him try to land a knee here. He has a wide base, and although when he does get taken down, it does seem to take a while for him to get back to his feet, and he's fighting a fighter with a wrestling background in Devin Clark. Devin Clark can put on a pace. He's had his moments, but he's also faltered in big spots, Devin Clark. I'm leaning towards Kennedy Zehchukwu. I know he's 30 years of age, so he's another fighter who's not necessarily a spring chicken. We're not looking at a prodigy who's 26, 27 years of age. And Devin Clark, we know exactly who he is at this stage in his career. But as far as potential goes, Zehchukwu has my attention. And also to know that he fights out of a solid camp, and you have Team Fortis at the controls, I think they will be able to steer themselves into victory lane in this spot. And it wouldn't surprise me to see Zehchukwu end up getting a knockout here. He seems to be gaining some steam. And I don't trust Devin Clark the longer this fight goes. I think that he's going to walk right into something. So give me Kennedy Zehchukwu for the victory. We've got a number of comments here. Professor Chaos says that he's expecting a fast start for Kennedy. Well, I'd like to see that. I would like to see that. And you are correct. Clark should shoot for his life right away, because he's going to end up if he's at range, he's going to end up getting picked apart. Now, we've got a fantastic matchup here. This is a fight that puts the fannies in the seats. Drew Dober versus Matt Steamroller Frevola. Frevola, local fighter, coming in as a plus 180 underdog. We know that Frevola will fight until his last breath while conscious. He is a fighter who does have an underrated ground game, but will stand and bang, as we saw in his last matchup. Frevola can throw caution to the wind, or at least it looks like he's throwing caution to the wind. We've seen him knocked out by Terrence McKinney and Polo Reyes. I was at his fight against Lando Venata, and I was very impressed. I was on Venata in that spot. Now, Dober, he makes his strikes count. He is the more technical fighter here on the feet. Wide base. I am blown away how Dober makes weight just about every time. And I know the California State Athletic Commission, when they put out the numbers after fighters rehydrated, Dober was always one of the guys who put on so much weight afterwards. And he's coming off of the Bobby Green fight. You can't count Dober out. Do I think these guys are going to come out standing, trading, and banging? That could be the recipe here. Matt Frevola, I'll be honest, I'm not exactly sure what he's going to do here, because if he tries to extend Dober, that may end up being a recipe that's going to help him out. Dober, if he gets put on his back, I could see Frevola end up in top position here for a significant amount of time. Problem is, though, Dober, when he's on, he can put anybody's lights out. And I'm leaning towards Dober to get this fight done. And I don't like the fight doesn't go the distance line. I think that line is a little bit wide here, to be honest. I have no action on this bout, but I'm going to be picking Drew Dober to win, and to win inside the distance. I think that he at some point catches Frevola, but I will be rooting for Matt Frevola. He's great for the community, and he is a fighter who will fight hard for your money. Yes, there is a world where Matt Frevola wins this fight, and I hope that he does, but I'll be picking Drew Dober. I think that Dober, his proficient striking is going to be what sets himself apart in this specific matchup. So give me Drew Dober there. Now, this is a fight that I've been torn on from a betting perspective. You've got Charles Jourdain, who he struggled on the mat. That's his kryptonite. And Gracie has been away from the sport, well, away from mixed martial arts. I know he's been at his academy, or people say that he's been at his academy. What I do know is that the guy hasn't competed inside of the octagon in many years. Okay. And Gracie, although he has phenomenal jiu-jitsu and can lock up a submission against anybody, he's going to have to find Charles Jourdain, who is the much better athlete here, a fighter who has much better hands, is quick, has a great gas tank. We've seen Gracie last time out against an aging Cub Swanson. I believe Cub Swanson was coming off of that knee injury also. I got to check that out, but I wasn't sure if that was before or after Cub Swanson's knee injury. But Cub Swanson was running circles around Gracie. And Jourdain can make mistakes. We've seen him make mistakes against just about everybody. But the Doo Ho Choi fight, there have been others where Charles Jourdain, when he's locked in and when he smells blood, he can turn it on. I'm going to be looking forward to hearing the Purge siren later today inside of the Prudential Center. That should be an exciting atmosphere. Can Gracie end up locking up a submission? Yeah, no doubt he could. Is he going to be able to track down and find Charles Jourdain? That is the question here. And is it going to be Charles Jourdain making an unforced error in this spot? That's a likely outcome as well. He could put himself in danger. You listen to the pre-fight interviews, and Charles Jourdain's talking about, his job's on the line. He needs to fight a technical game plan. So if you're thinking of playing fight doesn't go the distance, that may be a dangerous spot also, because if Charles Jourdain actually fights a competent game plan, he could just stick at range and land his long strikes for a significant amount of time. We've seen Gracie's durability hold up. So that is an angle I'm concerned about. I'm also concerned about Gracie's his lack of time in the octagon, his gas tank issues, and also the guy took a hell of a lot of damage against Cub Swanson. Cub Swanson was landing to the body, to the head, and it was almost like a zombie-esque performance, walking, tracking, trying to track his opponent down. So the other thing is, I was at Shane Burgos' fight against Charles Jourdain, and we saw Shane Burgos grappling his ass off and putting Charles Jourdain in many, many tough positions. Imagine what Gracie could do to him if he puts Charles Jourdain on his back for a significant amount of time. It could be lights out, night over. So tough spot here. I do think that Charles Jourdain, with his back against the wall here, is going to put on a show and end up winning this fight. It's just a matter of, can we trust him? Can we trust either fighter in this spot? One thing I can trust is Gracie marching towards his opponent in the hopes of either taking the opponent's back or trying to find a way to the mat. But Charles Jourdain is going to be the pick here. Interesting matchup. The comments are really starting to pile up here. Let's see. From Evan, Dober eventually puts Frevola on his back, and then it's a matter of time before Frevola takes a nap. Oh, well, we'll see. We'll see about that. Professor Chaos says Jourdain might trip on himself. That's always a possibility also. The guy makes unforced errors. We've seen it many, many times. And it seems like Jourdain hasn't really spent the time to develop his wrestling and his grappling. His frame also doesn't necessarily lend itself to the traditional wrestler's physique. He's got a very long, wiry frame, and he loves to strike. But I'm going to be picking Charles Jourdain there and looking at the number because I see a lot of folks on Gracie. The line's been closing. Let's see what ends up happening here. One thing, though, that should be fight of the night, regardless of the situation. That is probably up there, top 3 fights that I'm most anticipating this evening. Next up, we've got Movsar Evloev taking on Diego Lopes. Diego Lopes plus 625 underdog here. Evloev minus 900. Now, I've been to a number of UFC events and had tickets to a number of them where bouts have been canceled. And this is unfortunately a card where it's happened again. Bryce Mitchell was supposed to fight Evloev. That bout did not come to fruition. We were supposed to have Benny Dariush against Charles Oliveira at this matchup. I've also had the rug pulled out from under me when Dustin Poirier was supposed to fight Nate Diaz, the first iteration of that matchup. That never came to fruition. And then the one that hurts the most was one of the matchups when Daniel Cormier was supposed to fight John Jones. It was actually supposed to be their second matchup, and that fight got canceled because of John Jones, I believe. So now we have Evloev coming in as the minus 900 betting favorite. He's a fighter who checks off many of the boxes. But I also got to come back to that Cejudo matchup where in the third round he's shaking his finger at the crowd saying, "Oh, no, I wasn't hurt," but he was getting caught with a few strikes here and there. And in this spot, one thing that stands out about this fight and this spot, watch the weigh-ins, watch the stare downs, both the press conference face-off and the ceremonial weigh-ins. Lopes seems to really believe in himself here, and you look at the tattoo that he has on his chest. I guess it makes sense. But Lopes is going to try to come in here and catch Evloev, and then on the mat, I suspect he's going to end up on his back and will be trying to throw up submissions left and right. He's taking this fight on extremely short notice. I'm looking at the fight doesn't go the distance line is hovering around the minus 120s or so, minus 130s. I know Evloev has a tendency to not finish opponents, but in this spot, he may look to try to make a statement here. And if he wants to climb the ladder, he's going to have to put on a spectacular performance. We've seen folks like John Fitch and others get punished basically for not finishing their opponents. And if he wants a title shot, and we know how Dana likes his finishes, Evloev inside the distance is going to be the pick. And it wouldn't shock me, though, to be honest, to see Lopes upset the apple cart here. And I've seen stranger things happen. I was at Nogueira when he lost against Cejudo back in 2007 at Pride 33 for one of the biggest upsets in mixed martial arts history. So it would not surprise me to see a massive upset here, but the pick's going to be Evloev inside the distance. Next up, we have Jessica Andrade taking on Yan Jourdain. Yan Jourdain coming in as the plus 145 betting underdog. She's taking on a Jessica Andrade who's been a steamroller of her own throughout most of her career, bounced around at multiple divisions, is a great fighter. Love watching Andrade fight. She was outmatched against Blanchfield last time out. We saw when she fights technical fighters, sometimes she runs into a buzzsaw. We saw it against Weili Zhang. We've seen it against Rose Namajunas. And Yan Jourdain, I believe, has been disrespected in this spot as far as the betting line goes. I got in on her at plus 170. And Andrade, although she's been a money train throughout the years for me, and I've really respected her style, not many women's mixed martial artists are able to put in the type of work that Andrade does inside of the octagon. The Claudia Gadelia fight, we've seen many others. The Tisha Torres fight, man, she's been ragdolling opponents. And now Yan Jourdain, we must acknowledge that Carla Esparza was able to put her on her back and destroy her. And Esparza doesn't do that to many opponents. So I must mention that in the larger octagon, Yan Jourdain, if she is stuck on her back, she doesn't have that cage to use to climb back to her feet, to work her way back to the feet. So do I have concerns about Yan Jourdain being put on her back? Yes, I do. But as far as the striking goes, Yan she's a very hungry fighter. She's a fighter who is crisp on the feet. The footwork is there. And Andrade doesn't necessarily have great footwork. She plods forward and tries to Neanderthal her way into these exchanges. And she's at a reach disadvantage here. She's at a footwork disadvantage. I think that Yan Jourdain is live here to score the upset, and I'll be picking her outright. I think that she's going to surprise a lot of folks here. Also, her work at Team Alpha Male, she's been there for multiple camps now. It looks like it's starting to pay off here to a certain extent. This could come back to bite me if Jessica Andrade decides to fight a very smart game plan and take Yan Jourdain down and just grind her out. That could potentially happen, but I think that Jourdain is the pick here and the rightful winner. I think that she's going to walk away with a victory in this spot. So plus 170, not that bad. All right. Now, this is a co-main event. Very, very interesting fight. And it has been brought to my attention. We've seen it across the timeline that Belal Muhammad, you watched the pictures of the ankle. I'm still analyzing that. I'm wondering if that is a thing, how he was able to pass the medical commission and all the tests that are done prior to getting cleared for this fight. If that's a real thing, we'll see tonight when he gets inside of the octagon. Belal Muhammad coming in as the plus 115 underdog, taking on Gilbert Burns, who's coming at minus 135. Now, Gilbert Burns, very exciting fighter. Belal Muhammad, a lot of people consider Belal Muhammad to be a very boring fighter. Belal Muhammad is going to grind you against the fence, is going to drain your energy, is going to look to stall, change levels, and get this fight dirty. Gilbert Burns, very, very dangerous striker, and obviously on the mat has the credentials to lock up a submission at any point. I have concerns for both of these fighters, considering the ankle news and also the lack of camp for Belal Muhammad. But Muhammad has a tendency to outdo himself in many situations. He outperforms what folks are capable of or expecting of him, including myself. I've underestimated Belal Muhammad throughout his entire career. He's a fighter who finds a way. And there are some folks out there who adopt this whatever it takes mentality. The Luque fight, there have been others where it seems as if Muhammad's turned a corner here, and Burns is the older fighter. He's somebody who has a lot of mileage on the odometer. He's done now multiple weight cuts in a few short weeks. And the one thing that concerns me, I wish there was a way of confirming this ankle situation, but I got in on Belal Muhammad at plus 120. And I'm not saying I have buyer's remorse here, but that could come into play. If that ankle gives out on him, or if he's limping around the octagon, then that is a real challenge in this spot. The 5-round bout agreement here is something that I really also paid attention to, because if Burns is unable to get Muhammad out of there, then Belal should really turn up in those later rounds. We've seen him do it time and time again. He's a grinder. You talk about hungry fighters who really are gonna. They feel like they've been done wrong. Belal Muhammad feels that way, and Gilbert Burns, he's had his title shot. He's been near the top of the mountain many times, and he's also a fighter who's competed for about half of his career at lightweight. And when I saw Belal make weight, you saw that there's a significant size discrepancy here. And I think that after they rehydrate, you could see Belal, I mean, he drained himself to make this weight, but he's also going to be massive. I know a lot of folks put stock into the Gilbert Burns Chimaev fight. You also have to wonder how much that took out of Gilbert Burns. Those 3 rounds were some of the most brutal 3 rounds you'll see. They were beating the hell out of each other, and there was big damage dished out. Gilbert Burns has taken a ton of damage throughout his career, and I know Belal has a tendency to get rocked in some of his fights, but he's a fighter that just keeps coming forward. I'll be picking Belal Muhammad here. I think it's his time right now. I know that Gilbert Burns has the hardware to win this fight, and it looks pretty when Gilbert Burns fights. He's a very exciting fighter, and I know that a lot of folks inside of the octagon are going to be booing Belal Muhammad like they were at ceremonial weigh-ins yesterday, but I'll be picking Belal Muhammad here, and I think that he's going to walk away with the upset victory. Now, that ankle is an issue, or it appears to be an issue. So let's see. We've got some shenanigans going on inside the chat here. Good morning, Nicholas. Let's see. Now, let's get back to the main event of the evening, where we have Aljamain Sterling taking on Henry Cejudo, the messenger. Both of these fighters have been money trains for me over the years. Henry Cejudo backed him against Dominic Cruz, backed him against Demetrius Johnson, I believe, at plus 450 a few years ago. And he's taking on Aljamain Sterling, who the guy is Rodney Dangerfield, who said, can't get no respect. That's what it's like for Aljamain Sterling. But Aljo is a very, very talented fighter. And this line is interesting, because you're looking at another situation where we talked about Gracie taking 3+ years off. Aljo has done the same thing. I'm sorry, Henry Cejudo has done the same thing. Henry Cejudo has taken 3+ years away from the octagon. Now he's 36 years of age. I know he'll be firing on all cylinders, and he's a freak. He's someone who is an athletic specimen. He's somebody who is going to, when the going gets tough, the tough get going, right? That's the saying. That can be said for Henry Cejudo. We saw in the Demetrius Johnson fight, he had his ankle was an issue. Now, Aljo, we've seen, I remember out on Twitter, I was concerned when he was fighting Pedro Munoz and how he was going to answer or deal with the leg kicks of Munoz. And his take on it was that every time he gets hit, he's going to meet that with the same ferocity. So interesting to see who's going to be able to land first as far as the counters go, how that's going to be handled. The massive size difference in this bout is something that needs to be mentioned. It's not like, I know Dominic Cruz was the larger fighter when they fought, but Aljo, you're talking about the size here, the also the back taking ability. It just takes one mistake, and we're not talking about Gracie here, who spent years away from the octagon. Aljo's been very active, very busy. The Cody Stamen fight was something that I came back to also. Stamen, a wrestler who got submitted and had his he was put in some tough spots there. Cejudo doesn't have the submission game that Aljo does. And you hear Ray Longo and others, they've had high praise for Aljo for many, many years. Somebody who has performed inside of the training room, but not necessarily inside of the octagon, but they've always raved about how talented he is. And now you have Matt Serra in his corner. You have got Ray Longo in this corner. You've got Merab in the corner there, firing on all cylinders. This fight is in New Jersey. Hop, skip, and a jump from Long Island. I think there's some value on Aljo. I know how explosive Cejudo is, how intelligent he is, the game plan. I'm a big fan of both of these fighters, but I'll be picking Aljamain Sterling in this matchup. I think that he's going to come out here and surprise a lot of folks, just like he does in many of his bouts. I know that the gas tank may potentially be an issue. It looked like he had a massive cut, weight cut to get to where he is. And I can't deny, though, his back taking ability and how dangerous he is in many of his fights. And also, he's a very intelligent fighter, too. And the thing is, I mean, when you bring up fights like Caraway and others, Barao, these are fights that took place literally 5-6 years ago, right? So look at the amount of development in Aljo's game here since then. He's a fighter who will fight to his strengths, and I think he realizes what's at stake here. I'll be picking Aljamain Sterling, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him win this fight via finish, but I'll be picking him to win. Got in on him at plus 105, and depending on where this line goes, I